Hi everyone, welcome to my new episode again with Chris from UFCU based in Austin. Hi Chris, how are you doing?
I'm good. Aaron. How are you?
Chris, I'm fantastic,
Good.
amazing. So firstly, Chris is one of the disruptors whom I met in a conference last week, and I was just in love with his concepts, the way how he looks at the ecosystem, fintech versus credit unions versus disruption. So he has all of them covered, and very similar mindset. And I just requested Chris out of nowhere, the Chris, we want to be a part of the podcast. He was like, yeah, let's do it. It's fun. So Chris, firstly, thank you for agreeing to be on the Outlier podcast.
Oh, I'm grateful. It is, I don't know when this will all show, but this is Thanksgiving week. We're recording it, and I'm certainly grateful for, I'm one, grateful for the credit union movement, but grateful to know you and grateful for people that are challenging the system to get better. I think that's really important for us.
Thank you, Chris. So I'll do a quick introduction of Chris. Chris is the EVP of Member Experience at University Federal Credit Union. Apart from what he does at the credit union, he is advisor to a bunch of very innovative fintechs, and that's the reason I call him disruptors, and that's the reason the word outlier. So I personally think Chris is one of the outliers I follow, and I want to be in touch with, and I follow very closely to what he's doing. Before UFCU, it's an interesting story, right? After spending considerable number of years with fintechs, helping them build, scale, grow, he thought, let's now do something toward that's more community focused, right? And that's the reason a natural transition or succession. Chris moved from fintech to the credit union ecosystem, and now he loves doing that. Prior to fintechs, he had spent like years scaling Iron Mountain. So that's pretty much what Chris is. Obviously, I can talk about Chris for the next half an hour, but in the interest of time, Chris, I'll cut it short. And if I missed anything, if you want to add anything, feel free to go and add it.
I think everyone will appreciate if you cut my bio completely short. But I've been doing startups a long time. I think that if I think about a through thread that kind of runs through everything that I've done, it's really trying to be as purpose-based as I can. And so to make sure that we're making an impact, understand that technologies continue to change. And we started with startups way back in the 1990s, as my kids would say. Uh, and really, but it's always been around what we do with purpose. So even when I got into fintechs, it was about how do we give cash back to those who are getting wasted? How do we build digital wallet for better money movement? How do we help people pay off student loans? And then when I learned about the credit union movement more deeply, that putting all of that local impact power into a not-for-profit model based in your community, just that all fit right at home for me. So for me, it's really very purpose driven to be part of the movement, and that's why I'm so thankful for those who have built this. And I think it's really our job to help steward to make it better so that it's thriving, 20, 50, 100 years from now. And if we don't challenge that system, that's how those systems go away. And so I'd rather us be challenging it from the inside than only be feeling the pressure from the outside.
Absolutely, Chris. That's the reason, our mindsets do match a lot because we are here for improving the ecosystem by challenging it. That's really important. So, an obvious question, is let's talk about your journey. So, you want to talk about your journey, Chris, of what you love, what you did.
Yeah. So for me, my journey, I'm just like, I don't know. I was telling people like I got like the best job now, but I've always kind of looked at life with that perspective. And so we've lived here in Austin, Texas for about 13 years. Moved here from Seattle previous to that, and then we were in Chicago for a little bit of a layover. I've got a wife and 3 kids who are amazing, and really blessed through that. And then I just try and say like, how can I be of help? So what I learned from me is there's certain things I know how to do, and I've learned what my strengths are and what I know how to do, and that's always been around growth, and whether that's revenue growth, team growth, people growth, world expansion, global expansion, or national, or even now local expansion. That area, that just makes a lot of sense to me. How do you align an organization? How do you align the strategy toward growth? And people think that might be magic, but it's not. It's just a series of a lot of small alignment decisions, and that just happens to be where I'm really good. So I've worked through 8 or 9 different industries, different software platforms, built a lot of different things, but it's really been staying in my realm of like looking at the market, really understanding who the buyers are, what do they really need, So what do our members need in the credit union movement now? What are they trying to get? And then how do we align the organization to provide the most value we can while reducing friction? So lots of buzzwords there, probably too many, but that's been my throughput. And so for me, it's how do we live out that potential of what we're actually asked to do as a member-owned co-op? How do we actually live that we are providing the most member value that we can? Because if that's really happening at scale, then your members are getting met. And it doesn't mean they won't have one or two other relationships or something, but they're right now, I think why they're looking outside of us is that we aren't delivering that value to them every single day, and people just vote with their feet or they vote with their pocketbooks.
Absolutely, Chris. This is so well structured, right? I mean, now follow up to the last question. So what you love what you do at UFCU, because I mean, let's face it, you're a growth guy. You knows how to scale and grow a business, right? And now you are laser focused towards what the consumers or the members of the credit union do need. It's not always hunky-dory, because at the end of the day, you're still competing with the big banks, with the challenger banks, with the neo banks, with the fintechs. It's a huge competition that the Austin market has. Let's face reality, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do at I mean, obviously we know that you lead member experience, but what is exactly your current role? What do you do at UFCU?
It's a good question. So for me, my role consists of everything that faces our members. So our online and mobile representation, our branches, our marketing, lending, our investment services group, insurance, everything that we provide to the member kind of rolls up through me, and then everything that on the PR communications rolls up. And so that you put all that together and we create one member facing group called Member Experience. And the reason we call it that is because that's really what it's designed to do is how do we make sure that we're delivering the right products, service model, branch locations, everything seen through the lens of how we're providing value to members and creating that experience, that overall banking experience. We look through everything as an omni-channel approach. And omni-channel doesn't mean, as you know, doesn't mean everyone gets everything in every channel. It's what is that channel actually designed for? What do people need it for, and how do we deliver it through there? But we want to make sure that those are coordinated all through the lens of delivering through the member's lens what it needs, and we don't create then silos. We create one area where everyone leans in into delivering that best member experience. And I think we've been able to, we're not, no one's perfect in doing things, but where we've been able to kind of lean into and see a lot of growth is because I think we're really clear with the member what that value is, and then we live out that value within the community.
So Chris, if I were to summarize this, right? So what I understand, I mean, I love using the word member 360. So essentially what you do is across, I mean, everything that touches member 360, from acquisition to growth to experience, be contact centers, and it's a combination of retail plus wealth, I believe. It's not just retail, right? Got it. So, I mean, long story short, you almost done the entire credit union, long story short.
Well, I get those parts. Like, it doesn't work without everybody, right? Because like I just get the public view of it. And so there's lots of things that when I talk about aligning for growth, aligning the front end of the business for growth is work, but it's not hard. Getting your partners to align the back end of the business, the finance, the IT, HR for growth is just as much work. So I've got incredible executive partners that come along and do that. But when I think, as people are watching this, it's sometimes you get the products aligned and you get these things, and that is a lot of work. I'm not discounting anything that we do. I am saying, like, getting that whole system though aligned to growth, where somebody who works in finance or accounting can see their role in member growth or see their role in lending growth. If we clear this up, if we make this easier, if we make this more transparent, we're going to get more loans because the underwriter's going to be able to do this. That's just as important for people who want to grow, is getting the whole organization aligned. So I don't want, like, I love what I get to do, but I don't want to overstate it. It's really important that whole alignment comes through.
Absolutely, Chris. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a well-oiled machinery, right? I mean, marketing cannot work without finance. Absolutely, and experience cannot work without operations, because both of them have to work really, really well. Absolutely, I understand now, Chris. Now again, I'm just overstating it, at times, but I strongly believe that you're a revenue guy again, right? So
Yep.
how has your experience as an entrepreneur, right, influenced you uh, in your current role in the credit union? Because again, you come from a very different ecosystem than a
Yeah.
typical credit union exec does, right? So how has that helped, and what are your learnings?
So it's been good. So I love this. There's this quote. So one of our presidents, Harry Truman, he had a quote saying, "I'd rather have him inside the tent peeing out than outside the tent peeing in." And so I am in the tent. I'm a full credit union person. I love the movement. I love the history of it. I love the impact of it. But I definitely think my job and one of my roles here is to make sure that I'm disrupting a little bit so that because
Yes,
either you're going to be disrupting yourselves or you are going to get disrupted by outside forces. And so we have to continually do that. And I think what I've learned is it took me a couple of years to kind of make sure I understood how the credit union worked, what the right levers were, so that I wasn't breaking things unintentionally. I don't mind breaking things, you just don't want to break them unintentionally. So I think one of the things I've learned is that we have a massive platform and opportunity, right? And that's one thing I've learned. And the other is I've learned that it's worth getting right, because if we get it right, whole communities get healthier because we set lower rates, we keep people out of fees, we keep people out of trouble, and banks then have to respond to that by doing that. And that's
exactly.
what they don't really like. It's not that they don't love us because of the amount of deposits we have. You know, we're smaller than Chase Bank, but they don't love us because of the massive disruption we provide for them and how they have to do their model. So it's really important we get it done. I've also learned that it's an industry, and you and I've talked about this offline before, is it doesn't have a lot of new entrants, right? So usually your innovation starts because you have new entrants in the market. And
Yep.
so we have to develop an ecosystem of partners and fintechs and other things that help bring that innovation and disruption into the credit union movement, because we're not doing it through as many new entrants as we could. I'd love to see us do more of that.
Yep.
Our new entrants are coming in because I think it'll cause the whole model to innovate.
Yep.
But until then, we do have to build out this ecosystem, because that's one of the things I've kind of learned the most. But the biggest thing for me is credit unions can make a real difference in their community. And regardless of size, I mean, that is 100% true. And so I think as we lean into that purpose and getting really clear of not trying to keep up with every fintech, not trying to keep up with everything, but really
Yes.
understanding what's your model and what makes a difference for your members, and then understanding how you amplify that through technology, not just going out and finding what everybody else is doing.
That's a very unique perspective, Chris, right? I mean, I haven't heard this radical or revolutionary perspective from a lot of execs I've met in creative. So again, I thank myself that I've chosen that you are one of the outliers, and this is actually a reason for that, right? This is an amazing answer that I've ever heard in any podcast, to be very honest, right? Uh, Now let's look into leadership, right? I mean, obviously, leaders like you, right, who have had a very, I would say, innovative, as well as get things done. That's what you are, right. Get things done. Let's remove friction. Let's grow. I mean, no
Right.
BS, right?
Yeah.
So now I've seen people usually love people like you because I'm exactly the same alpha nature, right?
Yeah.
I do not want to create anything that creates roadblock for growth. Let's remove noises. Let's grow. That's all. So, what has been the most important lesson that you've learned across, leading organizations, being a leader like you?
So two, I know you asked for one. I'm going to give two real quick. One is just my role is to steward this, right? Not to own
Yes.
it. I didn't create a credit union. I didn't create
Yes.
I'm here because for 85 years people made really good decisions that then
Yep.
handed me this incredible thing that I get to be part of now. And so I
Exactly.
want to make sure we don't lessen that. So that's always important as a leader. I think that the humility of understanding it's not yours.
Absolutely.
The bigger one that I've learned is there's a lot of really incredible people at UFCU. For me personally, there's a lot of incredible people in the credit union movement. And part of it is how do you manage pace? Because my pace might be initially, because I'm entrepreneurial, because of my background, because of my is to move faster probably than my organization can. And my job is to make them continually uncomfortable without breaking them. right? Because you don't want that gap to be so wide, because as a leader, my job is to be leading people. My job isn't to be out by myself being an innovator. We call it, here we call it a space cowboy. You can be a leader or you can be a space cowboy. And space cowboy is great, a really fun job. You're just not leading anybody. You're innovating. You might be finding those, and you need both, by the way. You
Yes.
need space cowboys and space cow women and people that are out there doing their thing, that are finding the next frontier. But then you need leaders that can then move you along. And that's where I think, for me, where I had to really learn was, what's the pace that makes my organization continually uncomfortable, builds muscle and capacity so that they're stronger, because they're much stronger than they were 5 years ago when I got here.
Yep.
But it keeps us moving forward. And it doesn't mean everyone's going to make that journey, by the way. It doesn't mean everyone's ready for what's going to happen next. What it does mean is that if I don't build that capacity, then we're constantly looking for new people. And that's just not true, because we have really good people. So I had to learn not to confuse lack of experience and exposure with lack of potential. And so what I found is most of my team has grown over those years to now lean in, and they're running with me and they're pushing me now and they're going. But if we hadn't invested in that, in really that entrepreneurial thinking and mindset, we're not all the way where we want to go. We certainly continually work there, and I'm not all the way where I want to go. So I've still got
Absolutely.
But that's what I think is exciting, is that there are really good people. You just have to run them, but be comfortable making others continually uncomfortable. And that's probably the leadership thing that I think has been most valuable in this credit union journey.
So can I quote Chris in any posts about this single word?
Yeah.
This line is amazing, right? Uh, that's great. So now you've spent like almost 6 years
Yeah.
in the ecosystem, in the movement, and you love how it works. And I mean, same for us. We want to change the ecosystem by challenging it, right?
Right.
So how have you seen the credit union ecosystem evolving across the previous, few years that you've seen? Obviously, the last year was difficult. Rates were shooting high up. Now it's going
Yeah.
down. Now things are softening, but still there are a few nuances that are still there. NIM is still squeezing because of the same problem. But as a whole, what is your 2 cents on the evolution of the movement that you've seen?
Yeah, so a couple things. Obviously, during my time, I was here right before the pandemic started, and we kind of worked through that. And then you have this interest rate spike, and people told me for 10 years before that it was really normal, but it hasn't been that way since I got here. And so what I think I've learned is, one, those are times where you should innovate, right? So it's hard because you might have less capital available or things like that, but your model. It's a great time for us to say, well, that's not working anymore, and this isn't working anymore. So let's innovate those things. It's a great time to build muscle, because most people who are in those leadership roles haven't gone through an economic amount of up and down, because it was flat for so long. And so we're building lots and lots and lots of muscle. From a movement standpoint, I would say I've seen a lot of credit unions individually make a lot of changes, right? And then I've seen us come together and build some funds and build some things that we've never done before, and people can say, well, you're way behind. Yeah, but we're less behind because at least we're starting to do some things.
Yes.
I don't know that I've seen the entire industry move that way. I don't know if I've seen the movement move all that way. I mean, I don't think that might be a stretch too far, but I'm starting to see where lone voices used to be there. Now there's 10 or 20 or 30 people coming around and trying to figure out how to do that. And we've got a lot of, I'll just call it first gen innovation going on, right? Where we're really learning how to innovate. We're learning how to work with fintechs, and maybe we're doing some things right, and maybe we're doing some things wrong. But that's going to happen through those generations.
Yeah.
You got to get through first gen before you get through second gen. So there's times where I'm sure I'm frustrated, where I'm like, why aren't we doing this faster? Why are we choosing that? But I'm always going to be that way. And so part of that's me. But what I am, if I think back and I look at it, and I track what we were talking about 6 years ago and what we're talking about today, I think we are much farther along, and a lot of individual credit unions are much farther along than we have been during that time. Not just at UFCU, but as I work with credit union leaders around the country, I'm finding more and more of that. And we've gone through a big sense of generational leadership change, and so there's lots of opportunity, and I think there's lots of reasons to be excited that this pace of change should increase. And now we just need to be more open to a wider section of startups, a wider section of technology providers, a wider section of understanding what do we need to really do internally versus what can we bring in externally. And in some ways the rules are loosening up for us that way, and in some ways they're not. But I mean, we need to find a better way to get through those areas to just continually increase the pace and the pace of getting things out the door. Not just ideas, but actually getting them into the hands of our members.
Absolutely. I think, I mean, to your point, I feel there's a huge tectonic shift, Chris, that's happening across the generational leadership, right? More people like you are coming to the forefront of the movement and challenging it. And challenging it as in getting innovative fintechs into the ecosystem, as well as challenging the way how typically a creative thinks about a charter of membership, right? I think, definitely, if you ask me, it's very, I'm confident as long as people like you, or, I can quote even Christy, right? She's amazing. Thanks, Christy. Because of Christy, I know you. As long as you and Christy, people like you, are there in the ecosystem, in the movement. Christy even came from banks, right? She gets it. She gets how it happens.
And I'll just hit on that for a second, because I think we just did this thing where we have a lot more young college students working for us and things like that. The credit union movement is still amazingly attractive to people that want to come work and because most people want to have purpose in their work. They want their work to mean something, and we offer that above almost any other industry. And I think that we don't lean into that enough and appreciate it enough. So we're seeing young people want to come work for us. People like Christy's our chief lending officer. She could have went and worked anywhere in the world. She can do anything, and she goes, this is what I want to do, because the impact you can make is so tremendous. And so I think sometimes we undersell that and undersell the importance of that, because not very many times in life do you get to do really meaningful, purposeful things that matter with a group of people that you like, love, and trust. And the credit union does offer that. And I think any hard day people have, you can go home and go, yeah, but I love the people I work with, and I love the impact we get to make. And there's very few times in your life that you get to get both of those things. And I think that's why we're seeing some real talent come into the industry, especially coming out of this last economic and pandemic sense.
Absolutely. Having friends at work, that's a myth. If you're not a creative, even I've been a fintech guy, startup guy forever, right? It's very difficult, but as long as I've been associated with creative, I feel it's an absolute different culture. That powered by motive of people like you, I think that really works out well, right? So again, in the interest of time, Chris, I'm going to ask you one closing question. Now, obviously, I follow you through LinkedIn. If there is one single person on LinkedIn who's more regularly posting, that's Chris than me, right? So, people like us, we are always on the go of what next? What's the next big challenge, or what's the next big opportunity, right? So I want to ask you one question, Chris. What is the next big challenge or opportunity right now you're focused on?
So for me, we're looking at expansion. So one thing I want to say, I get this beauty in my job to represent like the best community on the planet and the best company. So I love that. So I think that is something that is worth sharing. For me, it's expansion. We're moving into Houston, and from Central Texas, somewhere we've been, and we have a lot of members there, but we've never really physically expanded. So it doesn't feel like much, because you're like, well, one market to two, but it's a massive market. It is the fourth or fifth largest city in America, and how do we serve those members well and do everything? It's causing us to have to think about scale. Just everything we have simple, and so in 2025, that's I would say one of the big challenges we have is how do we take what we do and scale it more, even greater than we have. We've achieved about 12% member growth over the last 2 years, so about 6% member growth a year. And so we're proving that our model can be valuable. Now can we scale those systems, make them simple, and then move into this other market in a way that's actually additive over the next 5 years. And so that's a big move for us as a credit union. I think if you run national companies or things, you can sometimes get lost in that. But if you really think about the impact we can make in a second community, that will keep me going for a while. I'm pretty excited about that opportunity.
Interesting. Again, growth. That's what you want to do. Interesting, Chris. So this was a Great conversation, Chris. I appreciate the time you spent with us. I'm respectful of your time, so I would love to catch up once again, and we'll do multiple episodes of these. But again, thank you, Chris, for your time today. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for your commitment and keeping us moving us forward. That really does, it really does matter to have voices that continue to push us forward. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris.
Take care.